Hello and welcome back. Thank you for joining me. And let's jump right into the idea for today. And it's a theme that we've been on for the past few days, at least for the past several videos. And it's a theme that's an undercurrent in our entire spiritual journey, what we call a journey, what we call a walk, a practice, whatever that looks like for you, and whatever role A Course in Miracles may play in that, if any. I'm glad that you're joining us today, and there's a reason why. It's because you need to hear this message that each and every one of us, you are more powerful than you possibly can imagine, much more than you give yourself credit for, much more powerful than you give yourself credit for in the midst of daily life, where we're almost constantly distracted. The power of our mind is a theme that runs throughout the particular section of the text of A Course in Miracles that we're discussing, which is Chapter 5, Section 5, The Ego's Use of Guilt. And we wrap this section up today with, again, the message that our mind is more powerful than we possibly imagine. We don't imagine much in daily life, really, do we? When we do try to connect with our source, with who we really are, it's often fleeting. There are often just little moments where we're not carried away by our cell phones, by email, by our constant stream of activity being bombarded in every direction and chasing after every shiny object. Ooh, look, something cool on social media. Ooh, look, shiny object, right? And some of these are obligations that we have in the world, like going to work. And, well, I mean, I guess you can't call eating and drinking water an obligation, but if we wish to continue the existence of the communication mechanism, then we got to do it, right? So there are things that we do here in life, but when we're in the midst of it, we don't often pause to think about the power of our own mind, which keeps us stuck in this spinning wheel, but has the power to stop the wheel completely. We have the power to get up and walk out. A helpful analogy here, a helpful visual is a movie theater with a movie that's playing. And like life, there are parts of it that are deeply disturbing, that are violent, that are hateful, that are full of conflict and arguments. And then there are some very artistically shot scenes that are beautiful, like a beautiful sunset, or maybe someone is giving somebody a hug and expressing love. Maybe there's a really beautiful act of true forgiveness going on the scene, and then somebody shoots somebody the very next second. Boom, the drama continues. That it's like a movie, and we're the ones seated in the dark theater. Could be eating popcorn, could be eating candy, or maybe you've snuck some booze in or some outside food or something like that. But we're transfixed by all of the images and the flow of drama, the intermittent flow of drama on the screen. And we're just sitting there. So, what we don't realize when we're just sitting there and we're absorbed in the film, we're carried away by all of the drama taking place. We have completely suspended our disbelief, haven't we, that this is fictitious, that it's all made up. Like a movie, it's all made up. We made it up. What we don't realize is our mind is the projector. Our mind has placed the film in the projector. It's the cause of the images on the screen. What we don't realize also is that we can go up to the little room where they have the projector and stop the violent film and put a different film in there, one that's wholly and completely loving, that will show us what the Course refers to as the real world rather than the world of illusion. Do we do this? No, we don't. We can. That's the message today, is we can. In fact, we can get up and walk out of the theater into the sunlight. We can get up at any time. How often do we think of that? When we're transfixed by the film, when we're transfixed by the images on the screen and the drama that we've given reality, it's not real, but we believe that it is, and we fall in love with certain characters in the production, and we vilify other characters in the production, and fictitious beings' lives and travails are more important than our own in that moment, aren't they? Yet we have the power to switch the film in the projector, and we have the power to get up and walk out of the theater entirely into the sunlight. So every time I think about the power of our mind, this image of people seated in a dark movie theater comes to mind. The mind is the cause. All of this drama we've made, this is very powerful, isn't it? We can unmake it. That's very powerful. And in the midst of our daily lives, watching the movie, we don't appreciate that our mind is very powerful. So whatever you do today, whatever you take away from this conversation, take away that you're more powerful than you could possibly imagine. We made all this, unmake it. Let's unmake it. You can unmake it. You can choose to get up and walk out of the theater. If the violence has disturbed you enough and you formulate the wish to have the peace of God and only that, i.e., the sunlight outside the theater, go forth. So, as we wrap up this section of the text, guilt is, well, when guilt shows up in our experience, it's a sign that we believe that we can think apart from God. We believe that we're separate. We believe that we're an individual, a self-sustaining survival unit. I'd like to call your attention when we're talking about the power of the mind to lesson 45 in the workbook for students, if you've been through the workbook. But the idea upon which we practice, it's a very, very, very important idea, is God is the mind with which I think. Our real thoughts, anything that can said to be real here in this world of illusion, really the only things are the thoughts that we think with God, our loving thoughts. Just that. That's real. Why? Because God is real. And only God is. What's implicit in that two-word statement, God is, period, after which nothing needs to be said at all. The implicit component there is only God is. And you have not left your source. Ideas leave not their source. You are the thought of God. So am I. And so are all of your friends, all of your colleagues at work, your family members, and your worst political enemies. Everyone No exceptions. There can't be any exceptions because there are no separate beings. There's no separation of any kind. There's only perfect oneness. And in fact, the definition of heaven in A Course in Miracles is the awareness of perfect oneness, awareness of perfect oneness. So it's pretty clear when we allow ourselves to think about it that when our mind experiences guilt, it's very destructive. When we choose to see ourselves as separate, yeah, we just said that. When we choose to see ourselves as separate, it's a choice. And we can help it. All appearances to the contrary. Perhaps you didn't think you could help it before, but now you know that you can. You're watching this, you're a course student, or if you're just checking this out, you're interested in spirituality, particularly in this book called A Course in Miracles, which in fact is a thought system unto itself that has us undo the thinking of the world. In other words, undo our conditioning. Very, very powerful. When we're experiencing guilt, we're choosing to retain this idea of separation, which is not true. Like the images that appear on the screen at a movie theater, we're choosing to remain seated in the dark theater with our butts in the seat. Perhaps the popcorn is too good and we want to finish it, or we need these last little sips of our soda or something, or we're so caught up and enmeshed in the drama that we want to see what kind of crazy shit happens next. I don't know. We have the ability, the power to get up and walk out. It's destructive when we choose to remain separate in our minds. It's destructive to what? Our own mind. And ultimately, with our own mind experiencing suffering and conflict, then we begin to see that in the movie around us, in the world around us. People attack us. Perhaps we develop an illness in the physical body, that sort of thing. And we can always get up and walk out. And well, if you're asking why don't we get up and walk out, well, something must happen in order for you to do that. We must accept what this course refers to as atonement for ourselves. Accept the correction of our inner teacher for ourselves. Inherent in this is the acknowledgement that the separation, this perceived separation, never occurred, that it is, in fact, impossible for it to have ever occurred because there is, and there has never been, and there never will be any separation of any kind. There's only perfect oneness. We must accept this correction for ourselves. And when we do, we're reassured that our mind will go right back to its natural function of creating with God in the same way that we were created by God. We're the extension, the thought of God. God is the mind with which we think. Very powerful. So, do you begin then to appreciate, at least even for a couple of seconds, your real power? It's much more than you give yourself credit for. Yeah, we all have the power to pick up another handful of popcorn in the theater and wonder who's going to blow someone's head off next on this wild screen we call life, all the drama. We have the ability to sit here and continue to eat popcorn and stuff ourselves and become wildly uncomfortable. Or we could get up and walk out. Which is it? It's a decision that we all get to make. Get to make. We can choose to get up and walk out of the drama. And once we're out of the drama, it's as though it were never there. It wasn't. It was all just a series of images on a screen. Hmm. So I hope that in some way you find this message helpful and inspiring. The purpose behind offering these videos is to share your inner teacher with you, share the voice for God, share the Holy Spirit with you. This is why they appear so often. Also, we're going through the text of A Course in Miracles, which, if you have not noticed, is several hundred pages long with lots of paragraphs, chock full of meaning. Today we cover two. Who knows how many we'll cover on the next video. But also, for consistency's sake, these videos appear several times a week because it's important. It really is important in any practice, especially in spiritual practice, where we're out to change our mind. Nothing more and nothing less than a complete change of our mind about who we are, about who our brother is, and what the world is not, right? All of that. So it requires some discipline and persistence, doesn't it? It requires a commitment. So I mean it when I thank you from the bottom of my heart for your dedication and commitment to practice. That is by far the most important offering that you could ever make. More important than a physical act of service, more important than money. It's your dedication and commitment to your practice that really matters. So for that, I thank you. Now, a smaller thing that you could do, if you haven't done so already, the red arrow here is the subscription button. That's the way that you can join us here. Go ahead and click that if you haven't already. Again, these videos appear several times a week, and I welcome your questions and comments. It's very important to have a place when we're studying any form of spirituality to ask questions, because there are times when it seems like we'll have more questions than we do answers. So you might be able to get a couple of answers here. So I invite you to do that. And thank you, as always, for tuning in. And just know that you have the power to get up and walk out of the dark theater. You're much more powerful than you possibly give yourself credit for. You think you were put here just to check your email and pay the bills, as important as paying the bills may be? Think that's it? That's all there is to it? You know it's not. There's much more. So let's do that. Much more. All right. Thank you for joining me.